some perspective from NMDC. NMDC reported a solid set of numbers in their fourth quarter. To discuss more about the Q4 numbers, Nigel is in conversation with Sumit Deb, the chairman and the managing director of NMDC. Let's listen in to that conversation.
Well, NMDC reported an absolutely solid set of numbers in the fourth quarter. Majority of the street was expecting a good quarter, and in fact, it was even better than what the street was working with. But how was the past quarter, and what's the way ahead? We're joined by Mr. Sumit Deb, the CMD of the company. Hi, Mr. Deb. Thanks so much, sir, for joining in. Well, your operational performance is splendid, and I want to focus more on that. But before we get to that, there is one niggling worry. Have you got any communication from the government of India whether they want to do an OFS and bring down their stake in the company? Have you heard anything till now?
Not as on time. Good morning, Nigel, and we have not yet heard anything on the OFS thing currently.
All right. So we take that on board because that's a bit of a worry and that's a bit of an overhang for the stock price. But let's focus on business then. Given that we have a bit of a disruption in the first quarter of this year, but you also have the Donamela in mind that will be available for the full year. What kind of a sales volume target do you have for this year? That's for FY22. And also give us some clarity with regard to that railway line. You all were doubling it. That's what will help evacuation in Chhattisgarh. Will that come into play in this year, or has that got pushed back into FY23?
So it's the current year production guidelines are 44 million tons is what we are targeting. And as far as the doubling of the railway line goes, the part of the line is already operational, partly it is already operational. 70% of the work is over. The balance work is yet to be completed. However, that is not in itself a constraint for evacuation.
Okay, all right. Mr. Deb, you said that production number will be roughly around 44 million tons approximately, if I got that number correct. What will be the sales volumes? And since we're talking about sales volumes, now there's been a bit of a change, I think, in the bilateral agreement that we have with Japan and Korea. And you export some part, to both those two regions. Roughly around 2.5 million tons is what I've seen. Could you tell us that with this change, will you be still looking at exports? And is there an export target as well in terms of sales volume?
So currently we do not have any export targets in mind. However, having said that, we had an agreement with Japan and South Korea, which was with the approval of the government of India. With regard to the duty part of it, the government had given a concession of 20% duty on high-grade ore. As you are aware that there is a duty of 30%, so the government was subsidizing 20%. So the effective duty was 10%, but then that is not continuing. That is not there anymore. So in any case, if we find it viable to export, we will do that.
Okay, all right. So there's no fixed commitment in terms of exports, but what about the broader number? That's in terms of the sales volume numbers, production at 44 million tons. Will you sell all of that?
Yeah, no, we will do around 42 million tons of sales.
Okay, all right. 42 million tons is what we're looking at, and exports there's no commitment as of now, owing to the change in the bilateral agreement. Let's get to pricing then. Prices have moved rather well, but everyone wants to know what's NMDC pricing. And if you can compare it with Odisha miners, is it more or less in line? Are you at a discount or are you at a premium?
So the conditions in Odisha and Chhattisgarh are a little different, but logistically speaking. But however, having said that, we are more or less at par with what is there in Odisha.
Okay, on par. All right. So we get that point then. Let's move to the steel plant. The last time we have spoken, the last couple of times, we have been talking about the steel plant demerger. That's the demerger of the steel plant as well as the core business. That was likely to take place somewhere in the second quarter of this fiscal year. Obviously now COVID, the second wave has thrown everything in different directions. So give us a sense then, when does the demerger of the steel plant take place? That's point number one. And also tell us, when does the steel plant get commissioned now ultimately? It's been delayed for many, many quarters, a couple of years as well. Your targets now?
I do agree that the steel plant, commissioning of the steel plant has got delayed. However, having said that, the plant is expected to get commissioned by the end of this year. That is what we are expecting. And the plant is in fact ready in all respects. The blast furnace, the SMS, the steel melt shop, all the packages are ready. So, and we are ready for commissioning. Only thing is that we need to have the requisite manpower to start the work. As far as the demerger part of it goes, it is on target. We are discussing with the government of India, especially the DIPAM secretary, and it is on target, and that also is expected to happen somewhere in the third quarter.
Okay, so commissioning of the plant in the third quarter of this fiscal, as well as demerger, you're now guiding for it to come about in the third quarter. That's by the December quarter we'll expect this to take place. But the problem is not that. The problem is how much have you spent on the steel plant and how much more do you have to spend? So I think it's around 18,500 crores is what you've already spent. How much more money do you require to get this plant up and running?
So 21,300 is the final cost of the steel plant. We've already spent 18,500 and we will spend the balance amount. The balance part of it is only the commissioning expenses, which we will do in this year and the next year.
Okay, so that's the management of NMDC. We need to take a short break now, but up next, commodities. Stay tuned.